Welcome back to Better Nurse Corp. It's your favorite color in the world, brown, along with my co-host Ruse, and we are here for episode 5, and I'm loving it so far. We actually went back, listened to some previous episodes, and we're loving them, and I hope you love them. But before we go on, I want to dedicate this show to my grandmother. My grandmother just recently passed away, and episode today talking about bedside manner, and I want to kind of link it to, my experiences with my grandmother, and I know you have some experiences with your new role with bedside manner, and yeah, I just thought it'd be a good idea just to talk about bedside manner. It's something very important to any healthcare profession, but we're talking about nurses, right? And we want to make better nurses. And the reason why I even wanted to talk about this is because I noticed a change, a shift from when I first started till now in bedside manner. And really just in customer service in general, but we're talking about bedside manner right now, right? So, and customer service and bedside manner is linked in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm just noticing a shift generally in customer service, but particularly in bedside manner, and it's part of nursing, and we want to make better nurses.
Bedside manner is like one of the most important things, right? It's like, I forget what the saying is, but the takeaway was that first impressions and last impressions are what everybody remembers, and everything in between can go up and down, but the first and the last. And if you can maintain a steady state of more than less with those bedside manners, like it impacts everything. Like you said, you might take care of them, save their life, right? But if you somehow wrong them in their perception, and that's key, right? It's their perception.
It sets the stage. It sets the stage, and it really, in terms of like the trust relationship you have with your patient, if you have poor bedside manner, you're not going to have trust with that patient. That patient is not going to have trust in you, rather. And that could make your day, make your shift either horrible or just a really
living hell
of a shift. I mean, obviously we probably all both had both ends of the spectrum. And we might have had those patients that, we delivered, or we thought we did great customer service with, or we thought we did everything right, and then you really found out that we didn't, and then you could have given them medication on time, you could have turned them, you could have made them all comfortable, but you might not have done this one thing, and that one thing could have
one irregularity in their rhythm, and you got them the correct medication in time and prevented something, and you saved their life essentially. But you forgot to do one thing.
And then now your whole thing is messed up. Their whole perception of you is messed up, and that's just the reality.
You didn't say good morning when you walked in. You didn't explain to the patient what you were doing for them, how you were saving their life. You didn't take credit for it, right? Isn't that crazy? It's nuts. You could be doing so much for somebody. You can be doing so much for them. But if you don't let them know, if you don't educate them, and you don't make that connection with them, develop that bedside manner with them. And we have a lot of these tools, right? Like hospitals have these, let's teach them bedside manners through these, we've all seen it, right? We have these little like how-tos, or like those little
talking
cheat sheet
points,
things, cheat sheet things. I don't want to, give away the term, because God knows who's, but it's those talking points, those little cheat sheets that we all audit and been audited on, and emphasize on. Do you really think that teaches bedside manners, or do you think that's like a way of trying to control this beast of a monster with a million heads kind of thing? Because everybody does it differently.
But I think it provides a framework. I think if you have it and you're using it, I think it is effective. But I think it's also important to put your own personal spin on some things. I don't think you should be a robot is what I'm really getting at. Like, and most time, families and patients, they know when you're being robotic, and they know when you're being disingenuous. They can feel it, especially I think the family members, because they're watching you more so, in my opinion, more so than the patients, because they're just making sure you're doing everything right for the family member and all that stuff. The family member's probably just in bed sick somewhere, so not really being as attentive to you. But the family, man, like, they're looking at everything, and you just kind of, honestly, my rule of thumb is, and this is not always easy, I'm not going to lie to you, but I always try to make it seem as if this is my family member in the bed. That's the only way that I can get through it, because it's tough, because they might be angry with you. Like I mentioned, the family might be in your business. They might be angry with you as well, and it's just, you know, if you keep that constant reminder of, okay, what if this was my cousin or mother or brother or somebody in this bed, and then that kind of just honestly tricks my brain into just not even thinking about all the negative stuff, and just saying, okay, let's just get through the day. Let's just do what I got to do for this patient and pretend that this is my family member in this bed. And that's really, that's my cheat sheet through the whole thing, man. But it is tough. I have to acknowledge it's tough.
So you know all this, right? You know all this. You're actually a member of the community who has rendered this type of care, who's been involved in this level of, you know, craziness of the schedule of the shift. You know, you've been in the midst of it. You've been the management of it. You've been the leader of it. You know. Now you were recently the consumer of it.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, customer service, I think in general, is declining. Like, good customer service is declining.
So what happened?
I mentioned on. So like I mentioned, my grandmother, just passed, and I noticed a transition. So she went from inpatient to rehab, back to an inpatient, then she went to hospice. And I noticed a difference in customer service with all of those little transitions. So in the rehab, I noticed the customer service was lacking, but in the hospice place, it was amazing. It was, honestly, it restored my hope in healthcare again, the hospice place. It really did. Why? I noticed a lot more compassion in the hospice place. Now, granted, it's a hospice place, people are on their way out, they might be showing that compassion for that respect. But in terms of just how I would like my family member to be treated, the hospice place was amazing. They were just very attentive, very compassionate. I mean, it was just like, I was happy for my grandmother to be there. Now, go to the hospital.
You felt safe.
I felt like they cared.
Right.
I felt like they actually cared. The hospital, I felt like she was just another body there. And I can understand why, because hospitals, it's like a cash cow. The faster you get them in and out, the more money you get, and that's just honestly how we felt. I felt like it
hospital
was
beds are a commodity, right? They're a limited.
Yes. So I do have, me only working in hospitals, I totally understand it. But again, I kind of lost my hope in the humanity aspect of healthcare, because it just seemed like a capitalistic engine like everything else. But with this hospice place that I recently had experience with, I mean, it was just the polar opposite. It was as if
they maintained
cared.
Humanity.
It was,
and
they had good bedside manner.
So you felt their humanity and their level of care with every interaction.
I felt like my grandmother was more than a body. Right. More than just a way of just getting a couple of $1,000s, from Medicare or Medicaid and health insurance and ARP, whatever she had. Like, I just felt like they did not care at the hospital, man. It was just completely different. I mean, I also noticed this too, and I'm nothing against young nurses, but I also noticed the hospitals had a lot of younger nurses, and then the hospice place had a lot more older, mature nurses. Probably have been nurses for a while, so that could have been something there. I don't know, but I just really want to point to you guys that compassion family members, they feel it. And being on this side of not working at it, but just being the family member and watching my family member being treated by nurses and healthcare professionals, the compassion part, don't lose that. Don't lose that at all. You have to have that because we feel it and it's necessary for your proper bedside manner.
It's interesting. It's interesting. If you want to look at it from a numbers game, right? So people who are perceived as nicer or caring are also the cases with the least number of lawsuits against them as well. At the actual level of care that was actually provided, unless it was like gross negligence or something that just completely was off the rail. But it's people want that human connection, right? It's simple as that. They're in a vulnerable state. They don't care about medication, staffing, whether you're new or not. You're a human being. They're a human being. That's another human being's loved one, right? They want to see that compassion. They want to see that you're willing to stand still for 30 seconds and look at them in the eye. If I was in a classroom right now, I would tell my students to take the time to count to 30 and see actually how long that is, but in reality how short that is in the grand scheme of things. And that's all it takes. Spend an extra 30 seconds of standing still and looking them in the eye and talking to them, right?
And acknowledge the family members that are by the bedside as well. I noticed that when my grandmother first got to a hospital, one of the hospitals, it was as if I wasn't even there. And I had to verbally say, hello, can I get an update? Or I'm a nurse. I had to tell everybody I was a nurse at that point because that was the only way that I was
going to pull rank.
To me, the respect.
You had to pull rank.
Like I deserved. I did.
You pulled rank.
I did everything. But the only place that I didn't do that was I didn't even have to because it was like automatic for them. But the inpatient unit, man, oh my gosh, I had to pull the rank. I had to. And then that's when I started getting the whole proper care, proper bedside manner. Once they knew that I knew what I was looking at. Oh, man.
You know what you were grading them on?
Everything, bedside manner.
Yeah.
I grade on everything. I watch like a hawk because I'm always looking for mistakes. I don't know why. And I always feel like when other nurses looked at me when I was by the bedside, I feel like they were looking for that same stuff. So I was always like, if I knew you were in any type of healthcare, I made sure that day all my I's were dotted, all my T's were crossed. Because, like I did with some people from this previous situation, like I went and I made complaints. Like I noticed that if they didn't wash their hands or something like that, I kind of,
there are certain red lines. Yeah. And, washing hands, like your bedside manner. So I want to play devil's advocate for a second. If you're a new nurse, as a nurse or as a healthcare professional, you stand out like a sore thumb, right? Especially to a trained eye, right? And it's regardless of how many years of experience you have. Even if you change roles, like I recently changed roles.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Right, well, we'll get there then. Yeah. But it's interesting. It's fascinating how these things will mess you up, even if you're seasoned, right? You can't lose track of it. You can't lose track of it. When I walked in, I used to walk into rooms, and I still do. This is one of my practices. If I see somebody inside the room, I used to acknowledge them first, right? And then the patient. Because out of the fear of, I want to appease them. Yeah. As I grew more mature in my nursing career, I started to talk to the patient as if we've been buddies for a million years, right? Because that's the approach that you need to have, right? Mr. Brown, how are you doing today? I'm so happy to see you. You're sitting up. You look good. How you feel today? Did you have a good night? Did you have a good day? This is the first time you've ever met this human being. Right? And then who's this lovely person sitting here? Is it okay for me to talk?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then you acknowledge them. And then you probably end up speaking to that person because they're whatever, the brother, sister, mother, sister, father, son, daughter, for the rest of the time. But you start your conversation with them, with the patient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that right there will set you up, man. Like, that will set you up for the rest of your shift. It really will.
It also protects you when you're a new nurse, too. Can I be honest about that?
Go ahead.
I want to interject my own personal experience right now. The difference between me being new role with experience and then me being the new grad without the experience was this one profound thing. When I speak to a patient, my approach to them at the beginning, if it wasn't like this when I was a brand new grad new nurse, right? It's just like I didn't know what to do because my physical exam, I had to go in there and do that, right? Now, same thing, right? New role, new things, a whole new different mindset. So I feel like I'm a brand new grad all over again, right? I walk in there, but the difference is I walk in there and like I said before, I try to talk to that human being like I've known them a million years, like they're my best friend, right? Like they're my brother, like they're my uncle, like they're my sister, whatever. And that sets me in a more calm state where then I remember what I have to do next. And it comes more naturally, even though in my head I'm screaming, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
But you've maintained that personal relationship. You've covered your own A because, you've allowed a calm, collective scenario for yourself to hide behind, right? While maintaining that openness with the patient.
Right. It almost sounds like a lot, but it really, it's when you say 30 seconds, that's really 30 seconds to a minute is all you need to establish the right rapport with your patients. And part of bedside manner is also if you say you're going to do something, do it. And do it in a timely fashion. So if you say, hey, I'll be back in an hour, I'll be back in 30 minutes, do your very best to be back in that 30 minutes because they're expecting you. And if you can't, just pop your head in and say, hey, I know I said I'll be back in 30 minutes. Something came up. I find the more you communicate with your patients, if they can communicate back and forth with you.
Even if they can, you should still talk to them.
It's a good point. Because they're listening. If they can hear, they're listening. And sometimes I've even had situations where I didn't think the patient could communicate with their family. They might have had a speech impediment or something, but sometimes the family is able to understand what that person is saying, and then they wound up telling the family member things that I was like, wow, I didn't know you could communicate with them. But yeah, they have these special type of ways they can communicate where they can understand each other, and you'll never know. So you're absolutely correct.
You don't ever want to be blindsided by a family member that you thought the person was no way in hell they can hear this, or remember this or that. And you have this conversation near them or over them while you're cleaning them or and then they come back to you by the way, who's nurse blah, 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 and they give you this laundry list of things. And you're say what now? You heard what?
It has happened. It has happened when I was a nurse manager. It has happened. The patient's family member came to me and they had all these complaints about all the staff members that they had negative experiences with, and I had no idea this patient could communicate with their family member, but they were able
Apparently nobody did
communicate. Exactly.
Oops. Right? That's a big oops.
Yeah, it's a big oops.
So don't make assumptions. People are listening. And one thing I learned was that, and this wasn't, if you're in the hallway and your patients,
oh yes,
they're all listening. They have nothing better to do. You have literally held these people hostage in their bed with some crazy ass channels on the TV that they don't even want to watch anymore. And if they have any wits about them, it's like soap opera outside in the hallway. Think about it. They don't need to go watch these, ER shows or whatever. They just turn down the volume of, especially night shift.
Yeah. Oh yeah, night.
The next morning, as a nurse, I used to be like, so how was your night? How was your nurse? Did you know that so-and-so's pregnant? I'm like,
they got all the scoops.
What? No, thanks for telling me.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like I mentioned, my rule of thumb is I just have to pretend that this is either my family member or a very close family with me. That's how I kind of save myself from getting into these situations, getting into bad situations, or just experiencing negative family members. Like, I just have to just pretend that they're my family member, and that's how I can kind of just give them the care that they need. Because I'm going to treat my family member different than I'm going to treat somebody differently in the street. Like, that's just, I don't care who it is. Like, if your mother is in the hospital bed and you're her nurse, I don't think that can happen because it's probably a conflict of interest, but there is the best treated patient there is out of all my other patients. That's just, to me, human behavior. And if you just keep that mindset, that these are people, like you said, these are family members. This is my mom, this is my cousin, and you don't know how connected these people are with their family members. It could be a grandmother that raised their grandchild. Like, you don't know who
that
exactly.
That might be mom. Right?
And these situations happen all the time.
Mom can mean many things, yeah.
So, like, I know you mentioned, so you have a new role now, right?
Yeah.
You have a new role. You were a nurse manager, and I'm curious, like, now that you're an NP and you're interacting with patients on a lot more of a volume now, what's your bedside manner now like? Now before or versus before, like when you were, before you were a nurse manager. It's like I'm sure when you're a nurse manager, you had your staff, and you were, you taught them bedside manner tricks. You reviewed bedside manner things with them, and now that you're back in the bedside, like what do you notice?
You're practicing what you're preaching.
Are you practicing what you're preaching right now? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah,
because it's different.
Nervously in my chair. No,
when you're in management, you're it's different.
Listen. Here's the reality. Regardless whether I'm a nurse manager or a bedside nurse, you have good days and you have bad days. And for me to sit here and say, do I do everything that I say all the time? No. And that's not realistic, right? No. You said something much early on that, whatever it is, whatever talking points or whatever that you get, you need to make it your own, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, I've made it my own. But the downside of it is that sometimes you have bad days, and that's okay. And those are the days that you just go home and say, all right, that was a bad day. And the next day is okay. We get nervous. It's a new role, right? And something that you've done for 10 plus years, right? Walking in, introducing yourself, talking to a patient, doing a head-to-toe assessment. I mean, like the simplest things, right? Sometimes you forget to ask a question because you're overthinking things, or because the patient is there, because, even though you think in action, it's a different story, right? You have to develop those muscle memories, those behavioral memories, those interactional behavioral memories. So there are days where I'm sitting there going, this is all thumbs. Listen, I'm going to be very transparent. I would be able to give, a handoff or a bedside shift report, because as part of my, teaching, as part of my interview process, my management stuff, my previous NP stuff, my bedside ICU days, I would be able to do that with my eyes closed. In my new role, I feel like I'm relearning how to do it again, even though I know how to do it and I can teach it and I can teach you guys about it. So there are certain days where it's like, it comes to you like, nothing. And there are certain days where it's just like, whoa, that was a bad day. Right?
So is it because the NP role is different from the bedside nursing role, or like why do you think, or what do you think it is?
The NP role with the bedside nursing role? No.
Okay.
I mean, it's different, but it's not.
Okay.
Right? It's just a lot more responsibility, and it's a lot more chaos in different ways. Right? And it's just you getting used to that routine. Simply that. Right? It's not difficult. It's not difficult by any means, right?
Okay.
Especially when you have the base knowledge and you have all of that. It's just getting the routine down and making sure the nuances are in a way where, it's a higher risk game that you're playing now, right? This is more of somebody's life that's in your hand. So you have to be more meticulous about it. So it's that level of scrutiny that you put on yourself and filter for yourself that, that makes it stressful. When you're assessing a patient, you're writing orders, you're following up labs. Like if you talk about like the actions of it, you're like, oh, that's it? That doesn't sound difficult. But putting it together and creating that plan, creating that what if next scenario, what if that scenario, and thinking 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, right? And having different scenarios of what if something hits the fan and the patient crashes, right? Do you know the patient well enough to be able to intervene on their behalf? So that's the level of, mentality that you're dealing with. Right? And it's vastly different than my anesthesia world too. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Okay.
No,
so,
we're not going there just yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's very different.
So yeah, you as an MP, you're doing your bedside. You might not have 6 or 7 patients, but you probably have a lot more.
I have more like 12, 13 patients on average.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I guess, time management, right? Because that's still something that you have to figure out, right?
Dude.
I'm not an MP, so I'm just assuming.
You relearn time management. It's a whole different world. Yeah.
But I think the challenge with bedside manner and having good bedside manner is the lack of time. Like if you have a couple of patients and you have time, I think most people would deliver some great bedside manner. The challenge with it is when you don't have a lot of time to deliver this good bedside manner, and like you mentioned, you have 12 other patients that you have to consider. How do you manage it? Like how do you do it?
Prioritization.
Same thing. Okay.
Prioritization, and then a once over. The initial once over and prioritization. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody.
What do you
else.
mean by once over?
The initial round that you do.
Oh, okay.
That morning round that you do, or that handoff round that you do, or that first
you.
intro that you do with your patients. Depending on what setting you're in, right? That initial, you set the pace, right, for the rest of your shift, but whatever that it may be. And then after that is prioritization and just trying to filter out. But then, in between you have the distractions, right? So, and that's where being a pro of being able to dodge and weave and prioritization on the fly becomes more. So as a new nurse, as a new NP, sometimes I find myself becoming task oriented, right? And I have to snap myself out of it and go, okay, you can wait on this and go do something else first, right? Right? You can pen this note and then go start something else first, right? And then that's the crazy part, right? Being able to reprioritize things, being able to, and that's it, right?
Okay.
If I become,
so it sounds similar. It's
the exact
just
same thing.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing, in my opinion.
I got you.
Right? The stakes are different. The role is different. The approach of the mentality and the knowledge is different. But the experience, it's the same thing. It's like you're a new nurse again.
Wow. Wow.
It's
wicked.
It's wicked, man. It's a wicked feeling. I didn't think I was going to feel like this. I really didn't.
Really?
I really didn't. This was very humbling for me. Very humbling. Like, wow. I'm not egotistical about a lot of things, but I honestly did not think I was going to feel this new especially with the given experiences that I've had and the knowledge base that I had previously. But
Wow.
I was surprised, man. I was very surprised, and I'm humbled by it. And I'm trying to do my best with it, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And I tell these things to my preceptors and to my directors and stuff like that. And they're like, listen, we were all the same. It took me 2 years before I even felt normal. And the funny thing is, I used to tell my students and my, for like, I mean, you've heard me say this multiple times. I'm like, guys, the first 6 months as a new nurse, you're going to feel like you're going to vomit every time you walk into. And I was going into the ICU. So for me, it was like life or death, right? You're going to feel nauseated. You're going to feel nervous that first 6 months. The second 6 months is like, you're going to start feeling a little bit more like, I got this. But between that 1 year to 2 years, you're like, time for me to move on. And you still don't know jack, but, you learn the routine within that. These people are telling me like, no. 2 years, man, 2 years. That's when you start feeling.
Wow.
I'm like, hopefully I can do it in a year, but,
Yeah.
And then setting realistic expectations for yourself, right? And I say these things, like, well, what does this have to do with customer service, right? And I say these things because what it does is impacts how I approach my patients and their loved ones. And how nervous I come off or not come off, or how approachable I come off, or knowledgeable I come off or not. And it's okay to say I don't know, but still not lose their confidence, right? It's one thing to say I don't know when I'm like trembling and nervous and not showing that I'm new, right? However you want to describe that. It's another thing to say I don't know confidently and say I'll find out for you and I'll come back. I'll bring you that answer, and then follow through, right? So
The word you used, confidence. That's really what it is. I mean, I notice with myself, like I notice when I approach patients and I'm confident versus when I'm not confident. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm confident, I let the good impressions. But if I'm not, then and you're right. When you're new, you don't have that confidence at all. Like I remember my very first day as an RN, and I had my preceptor, and I just opened up pills, and I was so nervous opening up the pills. My hands were shaking, and all the pills went everywhere, and I was like, "What the heck?" And so, but the
not
good
just
thing
in
is,
the movies.
it was like I was like just shaking. It was my very first patient, very first time, and I was just nervous as hell, and it was just a really bad experience. But luckily, the patient knew I was new, and then his wife was there, so she knew I was new. So they were just both laughing at me, and I'm just like embarrassed as all hell. But like that confidence was not there. But that same couple saw me 6 months later. It is, yeah.
And that's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. It didn't feel okay then.
And it won't feel okay. Look, me knowing that it's okay sometimes doesn't feel okay. All right, so it's I know it's bad. Okay, but sometimes I walk out of there going, what the hell?
First at all, I didn't. I said to my mom after like a month ago, I was like, Mom, I don't know if I can do this because I was just so bad. I was so bad at it. Oh man! But like you said, after 6 months to a year, after a year, I was like, all right, this is nothing. But that confidence after 6 months, you got to give it that time. Yeah. And I also, I got to say this. You got to have a good preceptor. I'm sorry. You got to have a good preceptor. And I know those aren't always easy to come by.
What do you define a good preceptor?
Man. All right. I got to go with my prototype, my preceptor. She definitely. So I had 2. I had one in the beginning for my first couple of weeks, and I think I needed her at that time because she gave me structure. She was more so like, all right, you gotta have a plan. You stick to your plan. You can deviate, if you need to, depending on what happens. But and the one after that, I learned why, and I think you have to have somebody that is structured when you're a new nurse. I think. You have to have somebody that's patient, and you have to have somebody that's going to be able to explain things to you so you understand why. Like me, I need to know why I'm doing things, because if I'm just doing things and I don't know why, I'm being robotic at that point. So once I understand why, that's half the battle for me.
You're not a cookie cutter.
No, I didn't know why I'm doing it. Like, why I can't just do
Why
things
is it curved
aimlessly.
here? Why does it look like this? Yeah.
Yes, but my preceptor, she taught me, like, she took the time, she taught me, she gave me feedback in real time. She gave me freedom to let me figure things out on my own, and then she would just jump in if she felt like I was doing something going down the wrong hole. But like, she was there, she was present, she was patient, and she knew her stuff. Like, that's the thing. Like, I find now, like, you have a lot of new nurses precepting new nurses, and it's scary. But I get you don't really have a lot of the seasoned nurses that were there before. Like, I get that COVID changed a lot of that. But you gotta have somebody that has experience, I think, that knows, that can handle, precepting and maybe having a couple of patients, or just knowing how to handle that mean PA or that mean doctor. Like, you gotta have somebody like that. So that, to me, all that is a good preceptor.
Yeah. A good preceptor for me was always the person who let me know what the parameters were, where the safe zones were, right? Like, this is, I was okay to be, this is my scope of practice here, and then let me be free, right? Like, I was the type of person that I'm okay with engaging, right? I was never afraid to engage. With, of course, I wouldn't just do it blindly. Of course, I would make sure that, I'm witness the first couple of times to make sure that I'm not messing it up. But I was never afraid to engage. But a good preceptor for me was the type of person who, like you said, structured, right? They showed me what the routine should look like in an ideal situation, at least for them. And then I would take that general skeleton and I would modify it to my day or my needs, or sometimes it would just be identical, to be honest with you. Sometimes I was like, if this has worked for you for 20 years, great. Right? Obviously, something's working, right? So exactly. If it ain't broke, I don't fix it. I don't have to go reinventing the wheel, right? One of my newest preceptors said that to me. And I was like, yeah, I don't have to go reinventing the wheel. But you do have to make sure you know what the wheel is. You need to understand what makes up the wheel, right? The components of the wheel, stuff like that. You can't just, So new nurses, precepting new nurses.
Like I said, I get that you have new nurses precepting new nurses. I understand why. There is a nursing shortage, and you got to have somebody teaching them something. But I think it's dangerous. I think after a year, yeah, you have some stuff, but there are just a lot of clinical situations that you might not be aware of how to handle as a new nurse. And I think one of the sad things is that when I go on a unit now, I don't really see a lot of older nurses, and it's scary to me. It really is. You gotta have that experience. That experience, to me, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how 4.0. I don't care about any of that. Like, when you get into the real world and you got real things, situations to take care of, I think all that goes out the window. I'm honestly like you gotta have that nurse that knows how to control the situation. The situation can go haywire at any point. Like, if you have a rapid, you can have a bunch of doctors coming in, and all of them are barking orders. You gotta know who to listen to. Like, you gotta know who to follow. Like, there are just situations I think experience
or how to lead,
trumps.
not follow. Sometimes you need to know when to, because they're about to do something incorrectly. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
You got new residents, you got new doctors, you got, sleepy people. People make mistakes. Like, everybody has to be on point to validate the other person and keep an eye out for the other person and each other, right? Yeah.
But that could be a reason why the customer service or the bedside manner is diminishing. Good bedside manner is diminishing.
Because everybody's so task-oriented.
Yeah.
So
you've got these newer nurses just teaching, honestly, a lot of times poor customer service to newer nurses, and it's
so public service announcement, public service PSA. Give us about 3 or 5 years so we can get seasoned nurses again, and then our hospitals will be rocking again, right?
Yeah.
We need to come up with a slogan or something. Give us 3 to 5, and we'll make it 5 by 5. I don't know.
But it's true though. I think that's about 3 years, 3 to 5 years. You got some good knowledge base. You got some good experience. You know how to handle certain situations. You know how to talk to doctors. You know how to
handle yourself.
You need that time. You need that experience, which is why, like I know we mentioned on previous episodes, when you have NPs that never had bedside experience, that's scary to me. like that's scary. How are you an MP with no bedside experience? Now I'm not shaming any of the MPs that don't have any bedside experience. Like, listen, you did it, you did the work, whatever. Kudos to you. I would just prefer an MP that had bedside experience versus one that didn't. I'm very honest with you.
Unless you're like a medical student dropout or something.
Yeah.
You passed your boards, you couldn't get your pass, whatever. Then by all means, welcome to the club. Welcome to have you. If you become so task-oriented, customer service goes out the door, because it's like the survival of the fittest. You go back to basics, right? You go to that Neanderthal brain of yours and you become like, what is it going to keep me alive through this shift, not get me fired through this shift, and feelings aside, damned be with it, right? I prioritize your life more than your feelings at that point.
Or your meal.
Then as a provider, it's my life that's in threat. That's my life that's,
Oh, man. Those patients that just don't care about anything but their next meal. Like, you could be the type 2 diabetic. Your blood sugar could be at 450.
I want my double portion pancakes with my syrup and my bacon. Where is it?
And then if I say no because I don't want your sugar to go up, and then you're mad at me, like, is that poor customer service, or is that me being a good nurse? And obviously, to me, it's me being a good nurse.
Yeah.
But
not to them. To them, you're the devil. To them, you Satan incarnate. What do you mean I can't have my pancake? I always have my pancake.
Which is why your blood sugar is at 500.
And this is why we're cutting off your third toe now. Because you keep having your pancake.
Yeah.
I mean, but see, that's the thing, though. Like, we got to be realistic for our new nurses too, right? Be realistic. Nobody's gonna be perfect. I think even like most metrics is in hospitals, everybody wants 100%. That's not realistic. Most people want 90%. That's not even, I think, realistic, right? You pushing 70% or higher in most things, right? Some things maybe more, some things maybe a little bit less. But like on average, if you're hitting 70, 75%, you all stars. You all stars. People are looking for like 65, 62%, right? You as a human being, if you can be nice to most people 75% of the time, I think even your regular day job, your regular life, you'll just be a better human being for it.
Yeah. And I don't want to I feel like this is important to talk about, because there are a lot of people that are becoming nurses, or that are interested in becoming nurses, going to nursing school, trying to get into nursing school. And I feel, because I didn't even fully understand what I was getting myself into. Like, yes, my sister was a nurse as well. But even with that,
you don't know until you become one.
You don't know what the heck is going on until you're actually there. No. And it's not an easy job, but it's not a hard job, but it's not an easy job. And I don't want anybody to go into this thinking that this is going to be an easy job. You're going to make a lot of money. No. No, it's tough. You have your good days, like you mentioned, and you have your bad days. Mm-hmm. And really, time management is just the half the battle. Bedside manner, the other half of the battle. And knowing...
And they're hand in hand. All these things are hand in hand. Like, the list, it's not like one or the other, or one then the other. No, it's like all of it at the same time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you gotta, honestly, in my opinion, being a nurse has made me more self-aware as a person. I have been in some crazy situations that I've never thought that I would even just come across until I became a nurse. And it has really shaped how I handle stress, It has shaped how I handle chaos. It has shaped how I handle just mean people. It has shaped how I handle doctors that are just not nice to be around or just work with. Staff members that are just not nice to work with, to be around. And all that really just helped me learn who I am as a person. So I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, learn to become more self-aware prior to become nursing as much as you can. Like, spend time knowing yourself, because you're gonna have to know yourself
because you're gonna come across a lot of situations where you're gonna come across your own limits very quickly.
Oh my gosh.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Imagine still having to give good bedside manner to someone who tried to spit on you. This happened to me. He tried to spit on me. I had to I had to hit him with the dodge.
I've been
decked.
Yes,
you have been decked.
I
forgot
decked.
about that.
I've had my fingers grabbed. Oops, sorry. I've had my fingers grabbed and twisted. I've had, you stick around long enough, nursing becomes a physical sport.
Oh,
I hope you never experience it, but
wrestling, knee in the chest. Oh man, yeah,
I've heard horror stories.
Oh man.
Body mechanics is important to have around patients. Be self-aware of your body habits towards the patient. It's one of those things that can make or break your career and your body. So be aware of where you are in respect.
Yep. I me personally, before I became a nurse, I remember this really. I God bless her for this. She came to me and she noticed that because I'm a guy nurse, and I pick up patients, move patients, and I sometimes never always waited for help. in the interest of me just getting my stuff done and getting it as fast as possible, I would just do it myself, not thinking about my own body mechanics and me hurting myself. And one day, this nurse came to me and she said, "Look at this picture." So she pulled out her phone, looked at a picture, and it was an x-ray of her spine. And she said, "This is because I did what you're doing for years, and I had to get all these rods and stuff in my back." And I am thankful for that conversation she had, because ever since that day, I just waited. I'm sorry. I didn't try to be Superman and do everything that I was supposed to, do everything on my own, because even now, I still remember that picture that she showed me. She had rods all up and down her lumbar and thoracic vertebrae, and I'm just like, what? I don't want that to be me at all. Yeah, that's another testament why you gotta have experienced nurses out there.
You got 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, but you got 1 spine. You got 1 spine. And we're gonna bleep that out. Yeah. But yes, exactly. Don't F that up. Seriously, do not mess that up. Because there's no coming back from that. Once you slip a disc, I'm not saying that, for the people who have slipped discs or whatever, it's over. No. But it never goes back to 100%, right? And the probability of it sliding down down the bad side becomes more and more with everything that you do, especially if you don't continue or even become more vigilant about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, moral story, don't be Superman. I don't care how much of a lifter you are. After a while, you move that many patients, and honestly, some of them don't even help you move when you move them. It's like dead weight almost. And then don't get the bariatric patient. I mean, that's just, Lord, I've had my fair share of those, and those you just gotta have help, man. That's why I liked working nights, because nights I feel like it was just a different type of camaraderie at nights. And I even noticed that as a manager, like I noticed my night team versus my day team. It's just different. I don't know why it's different, but it just is a different type of flow.
Because you got to watch out for yourself.
Yeah.
Night shift, it's one of those things where you watch out for each other. You
need each other.
You have to. You have to. Management is not there. The resources are not there. It's a different beast.
Yeah.
It's a different beast. You have to be on your game. You have to keep vigilant. And, the more eyes and ears you have, and you work as a team, as a crew, right? Going back to, previous, You need to be a crew. Like, that's how night shift works. You need to be, even if you're in a situation where you work in silos, because technically you do, right? Mm-hmm. Your patient load is your patient load, regardless of the title that you have. But at the same time, you have to keep an eye on each other and communicate with each other. Right? Treat the unit like a big office. Talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Not so loud where the patients are listening, right? Because remember, they're bored, and you're
they're just looking for gossip at this point.
They're just looking for gossip.
Yeah.
Right?
Or something to complain about.
Yeah. Right? Don't tell them that, you're short-staffed.
Oh my God.
Don't ever tell them that. Right? Even if you're the best nurse at that point, if you've said that out of your mouth, it doesn't matter. You've already doomed yourself for the rest of the shift, because that's all they've heard was they were short-staffed. So you can mess up once, and that's it. Their perception is like, oh, I had a bad, horrible experience because they were short-staffed. Like, even as a nurse, as a nurse practitioner, as a nurse leader, I take my grandma or my mom or whatever, God forbid, anybody else, to the hospital, and I'm sitting there with them, and one of the nurses or whatever comes in, I'm so sorry I didn't get to you before, we're really short-staffed. And I just want to turn to them like... And that means what to me? Yeah. Nothing.
It's not my problem.
Nothing. That's your problem. You people problem, not my people problem. Me, consumer. You, provider. Give. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we revert to. That's what we revert to. It's
using that as an excuse.
That's not my problem.
Yeah, it doesn't go well.
So does that mean you're not going to do your job effectively? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is my family not safe with you then? No.
That's basically what you're saying.
All right, that's what you're admitting to inadvertently, but that's sure as hell not what you mean.
No,
and that's not what you're trying to convey.
But that's how the patients take it.
That's how everybody takes it, right?
Yeah.
Even the people who are in the know will take it that way. Mm-hmm. Think about it.
Because even like I said, like my grandmother just left the hospital, and I noticed that the nurses had a pretty heavy patient load. Like I was sympathetic to it. And I even mentioned, I was like, how many patients do you have? And they kind of like said, oh, I have like 6, and it was a step down unit, and most step down units have like 3 to 4. And I'm like, man, you guys have it rough right now. But still, I still wanted my grandmother to have exceptional care. Like even though as a nurse, I understood it. I got it. But it's my grandmother. At the end of the day, like, I want her comfortable. Like, I don't care what you gotta do to figure it out. You gotta figure it out.
Move heaven and earth. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. That's what you signed up for. Right? You're the healthcare provider. You're wearing the badge right now. Right?
So
you got the
don't use that
initials.
excuse.
Yeah, that's not an excuse. Yeah. They don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Right? Even your colleagues don't care. Right?
Nope.
At the end of the day, you have a job to do. It's like, how do we go about doing it in the most... So educate your patient. Talk to them. Tell them something that normally would take you half an hour is going to take you an hour. You don't have to get into the details. Right? Tell them, I'm sorry, I'm going to be back in an hour to get this finished. Right? Maybe a little bit longer. I have a couple of other patients who are a little bit more sick and unfortunately are requiring a little bit more of my time. So if I don't get to you as fast, give them a heads up. You don't have to be in details. Tell them that, your workload tonight is going to be a little bit heavier due to an unforeseen emergency. That's all they need to know.
That's the communication that I was talking about. You got to communicate with them.
That's all they need to know. Think about it. When they come to me and they tell me that, I turn into the most relaxed person in the world. Just chilling there. It could be 8 hours. I don't care. I know for a fact that X, Y, and Z is not happening. I know X, Y, and Z is supposed to happen, but not for another 4 hours. So for the next 4 hours, I don't have to, every time you walk by,
Yeah.
If you stick around in the hospital long enough and you walk past them, right, all you see is this. Like, especially if they have somebody in the height, who walked by? Who walked by? Who was that? Who was that? Who walked by? Right? Because they're all looking for answers. Ain't nobody know what's going on. And when you walk through and you see heads bobbling like this, that's when you know something's not right. Right? That's when your inner nurse goes, they're working short tonight.
Yep.
Right? I'm walking in to visit my grandma. Right? Same thing.
my gosh, it was so funny. I pressed the call button, and I just wanted to see how soon they would come into the room. It didn't happen at all. And it's happened multiple days, and I'm like, all right, yeah, this is a lot going on right now. So I had to go to the nurses station to actually get what I needed. But I'm like, man, this is what it's like when they, like, it's
on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, man.
How do we fix it? Can we fix it? Is it just a money thing where we need time and money, where we need more nurses to become seasoned, and that's it? Or is it like we need to give more to management to teach, or the nurse educators to teach, or the nurse practitioners to teach? Because I have friends who come and tell me, they're like, bro, they have me sitting on the units, you know, looking at monitors all day long. Or bro, they have me sitting on the units and, you know, running classes for the new nurses. Or bro, they have me sitting on the units, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. That's supposed to be so-and-so's job. Like, I didn't become a nurse practitioner to do this, right? Or educators, like the non-existing, right? The nurse managers taking on more. Like, so what? How do we teach them without making everybody else crazy?
It's a tough answer, because I don't think it's just a healthcare issue. It's just trickled over to the healthcare, and I think because healthcare is such an in-demand sector, we just don't have enough bodies to take care of everybody effectively, in my opinion. Like, to me, you don't have enough people working on a unit to answer all the call bells within 5 minutes. I don't care what hospital. I can't say I haven't been to every hospital, but any hospital that I've ever been in has been busy. Has been busy. And the expectation for any upper leadership, in my opinion, to expect anybody to answer the call bell as soon as it rings within 5 minutes, I just don't see it feasible with all the things that people have to do in a hospital these days. Like, there's just so much to do and so much to take care of, and then you have to think. You realize, like, we have to think to do our job, right? Like, and sometimes thinking takes some time, and a lot of times you don't even have time to think. It's just, it's hard. It's so hard. But if I had to give you an answer, I think bodies. We just need more people, which equates to money, obviously. But we just need more people to be in this industry. Like, there's a shortage. There's a shortage of doctors. There's a shortage of NPs, PAs, shortage of RNs, respiratory therapists. There's just a shortage of all of these essential workers, educators that just need to be
within the hospitals. Yeah. It's tough. So, going back to our original PSA, ladies and gentlemen of the public, give us 3 to 5, and we'll make it 5 by 5. I don't know.
But that's if we have the workforce that's graduating nursing school
from legitimate schools, because there's that now apparently.
Yes. Oh. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. When I first saw that, I was like, what is going on here?
That blew my mind.
What is going on?
That was what I was referring to. Like, we're pumping them out so fast. Like, right? It's one thing we're saying, yeah, we need more people in it because customer service is even getting damaged by it, right? And we have all these things that we're doing to mitigate on different things that we can do with what we have right now. But I think it's more fundamental than that and more easy to fix than that, if I can even pretend to say it's easier. And what I mean by that is, I think we need to go back to our industry and hit the reset button on expectations, right? And we just need to go back to the schools and to all the hospitals as like a public service announcement. It's like, all jokes aside now, and just say, like, we need to reset expectations of, like, we're all human beings. We need to stop all this, nonsense. And you need to start treating each other back with the respect and how we should be treating each other. We all get it. We're new. This is, we have a whole lot of new people, and it should be for the public too, not within just the industry. Like, right, post-corona, like, we acknowledge the fact that we have had a major shift. Like, these healthcare systems should put it out. Don't be afraid. I think you will earn more customers if you turn around and say, listen, Corona has decimated a lot of different things, but these are what we're doing to make it better. And you earn the trust back. You earn the trust back from, the public. You earn the trust back from your work, your cohorts. It's I don't know. I think we need to reset the expectations for both the industry and for the public post-corona.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Because no, it absolutely does, because the industry has changed exponentially post-COVID. Just the simple fact that there's not that many people working in the hospitals as much as before. The volume does not equate to the demand. I mean, there's just the volume of nurses, rather. Like, there's not enough nurses to handle the demand of patients. And there is a huge demand. I mean, think of mental health right now. Like, there's not enough mental health workers to handle this mental health crisis that we have right now. There's just not enough. It's interesting. Like when I see patients' diagnoses now, like, I notice a lot more mental health issues now after COVID versus 3-4 years ago. Why? We just need, you're right, we need a whole revamp of our healthcare system, but I don't feel it's coming anytime soon. I really do not feel it's coming anytime soon. I think it's something detrimental is going to happen. What that is, I don't know.
I hope not. I hope before something detrimental happens, a business idea happens first. Because with the way technology is going, I think there are solutions to this now.
Telehealth.
Yeah.
But yeah. What solution? Like what is besides telehealth? I'm curious, because I can't even think of anything that. So
right now we have technology that's underutilized, in my opinion. I think a lot of these mental health, or it's about accessibility. I think if we were to actually look at it and redraw the map where a provider from another state can see patients right under these parameters, and mental health is an easy one, I think, that you can establish. I think accessibility might become a little bit easier to get. But that gets into politics, that gets into, a whole lot of different sticky situations. But in reality, I mean, there are solutions, there are simple solutions for this, but it just depends on, as a population, do we demand it of our government and our industries for them to create it and maintain it, or not? Like, technology is there and it's advanced enough, or it's becoming fast approaching advanced enough where a lot of these things can become telemedicine stuff, where the beds would have a thing that will pop up, and they could have a one-on-one, with that person. Right?
There is a future with that. I see that happening.
And that is massive, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that's needed to be revamped, like to remake the industry, it's rampant, right? The product designs that have to happen, it's rampant. So there's a lot for the industry. If they actually want to be smart about it, it's the next wave, right? How do we incorporate technology to fill in the gap of what we need until we get it? Right.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We definitely have to do something. Like I said, there's a mental health crisis that I think we're not talking about as much as we need to be talking about it, because like the things that I'm seeing, I mean, I just see a heck of a lot more now than I did before. I don't know if it's with our age group. I don't know, but it's scary. I mean, I know anxiety is the number one mental health issue, but there's just a lot of depression going on, a lot of suicidal ideations. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of homicidal ideations going on. Like, the homelessness is not helping at all in New York City. It's getting scary, man. And then you think about it, like what they're talking about with the financial system and how we might hit another depression because they raised interest rates, and then banks falling, and it's all that's going to trickle down to the middle class and lower class and poor, and those are the ones that I'm seeing with the mental health issues. Those are the ones that I'm seeing that are suicidal and homicidal. Middle class as well.
These are the people who have the most amount of pressure on them.
Yeah.
Right. These are the brunts and the grunts and of society that make the wheels go round. And the level of stress that's going to be coming on these next few years, just as a global thing, right? As a global, things that are happening. It's not that we're not prepared for it. I think we can be prepared for it. It's just we're not taking it as seriously. And to your point previously, I don't know what it's going to take, what tragedy it's going to take for people to start opening their eyes that we need to revamp the system and healthcare system or global system. There's a lot of things that need to be changed. But for our purposes, incentive purposes, when you're inside, the hospital and you're taking care of a patient, the most fundamental thing that you can do to start this pay it forward thing, that this trickle effect, this butterfly effect, this whatever, putting out good karma, paying, I don't care what you call it, right? Starting this trend. You have to be a better nurse. You have to be a better human being. And you have to understand that when you're inside the hospital, you might be the newest person or you might be the newest person in that role. No matter what your nerves are, you still have to take care of that patient's feelings as much as you do their, welfare. Or
the butterflies never go away as a new nurse. When you're a new nurse, they don't ever go away. You just got to learn how to manage them. And that's why I mentioned the self-awareness, like know yourself, try to know yourself as much as possible, know how you can calm down, know how to, whatever you do, just know it, because you're gonna need it. Trust me. Trust me. All right, so any last words before we wrap it up, sir? This has been another great episode 5. Thank you all so much for listening in. And we got some other things planned for you that's coming down the pipe soon. Some educational shit. So be on the lookout for that too. And this has been another great episode of Better Norse Corp. This is your favorite color in the world, brown, along with my co-host Ruse. And till next time. Peace.